Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Multifamily Chronicles. This is episode number 10. My guest today is Thu-Van Cunningham. She's the director of recruiting for Western Wealth Communities. Welcome to the show, Thu-Van.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I am so excited to be speaking with you today.
So to begin with, let's introduce yourself to the audience, a little bit about your background, a little bit about, something that you're passionate about.
So I am the director of recruiting for Western Wealth Communities. I've been with them for a little over a year and a half now. I've been in the multifamily industry for about 5 years, but I've been recruiting probably for 15 years. I will say that recruiting is a passion of mine. I absolutely love what I do. For me, it's exciting to, be able to find the right candidate for the right role. And not only that, but to see them flourish in their position. There have been quite a few candidates that I hired when I first started here at Western Wealth Communities, and to see them move up in their career path and have been promoted from within is very rewarding for me. I always say, recruiting is the fun side of HR. I think I have the ability to, at times change people's lives. And for me, that's exciting. So, my passion is within recruiting.
Well, definitely, if you do something that you're passionate about, it doesn't really feel like work, does it?
Nope, it's not work. You come to work and you have fun every day, and you get to talk to so many different people, throughout the country and learn a little bit more about them. And then hopefully, you're able to bring them on board.
So now the first topic that I want to touch on, the Great Resignation. Everybody talks about it. Everybody's trying to find ways to, to manage, to deal with this phenomenon. But it's something that, it's something that happened not overnight, right? We're seeing, I guess, the effects of it right now. And in my personal opinion, we're just at the beginning of it still. This is going to be around for a very long time, but how do you think we got here? Like what led to what's being known today or labeled as the Great Resignation first, and then how do we manage? How does your company manages this whole new situation that is unprecedented?
Absolutely. So recruiting has been more difficult than ever. With this Great Resignation. I've never seen anything like this. You have people, you bring them on board, and they tend to find other positions, or I think a lot of the Great Resignation started from this COVID, right? People were afraid to go to work. They were afraid to catch this virus, and I think part of that, they kind of had to reevaluate what they were doing and what they wanted to do. So, some of them decided, what, I'm afraid to go into an office. I don't want to take the chance of catching this, and decided to just take a step back and take a break for a while. Or, they decided instead of going into an office, to look for remote work. I think the other thing that they're doing is self-employment, creating their own job where they can make their own schedules and, decide if they want to go into an office or if they want to work from home. So I think a lot of that has, contributed to this mass resignation.
So what are the few things that you're doing, you personally, and then your company, to overcome the challenges? And I want to say, you made a couple of great points. I think the first point is really COVID, that really changed not just the way we do business, but people's mindset, right? Before COVID, I think most people were so concerned about just work, right? And we will do family things whenever we don't work, right, we don't get to work, and you don't get to do, so much of a, family stuff, right, because you'll be mainly working. So when COVID hit and everybody was, have to start being, confined at home with their families, they realized, wow, this is so valuable. We don't really want to give this away when the whole thing goes away. Like, we don't want to go back to the old ways of, like, spending most of our lives at work and, like, really not having enough time to spend with our loved ones. So definitely, I think that really changed the mindset, and it's not something that's we're not going to back to the pre-COVID, situation
Right.
at all. We as a society, as employers, as recruiters, as managers, we're gonna have to adapt to the new reality, and we're gonna have to, find ways, to overcome the situation. And that brings the question to, if you want to share a few things that you are doing to help with the situation your company does to overcome.
Well, I think part of it is allowing some of that remote work and some of that flexibility. And I think the other thing that we are doing is, we're definitely, ensuring the safety of our employees who are on site, as well as our residents, ensuring that we are following CDC guidelines. We are putting up plexiglass in between the resident, the leasing professional, letting, and like you said, having to change. So instead of doing an in-person tour, it's a virtual tour. So a lot of things with the technology we have, we can still continue to do what we need to do. But as an organization, we have to take a step back and go, okay, how are we going to get over some of these obstacles, right? So, some of it is, like you said, they want to stay home, having a little bit of flexibility, having a better work-life balance, making sure that they're feeling safe at work, and providing those guidelines to them as well as the residents. So those are just a few of the things that we've done, for our associates, to ensure that, we're maintaining with all these changes that are happening, not only here, but globally.
There's something very interesting that just came to mind, right? Candidates before and after COVID, right? I know that they're way harder to to commit to our companies. I experienced the same thing as you are, and I think everybody else is. Let's just be honest. Things are not like back in a day where you will just make an offer, somebody will sign. Like, people are really looking for specific things, right? So when they're looking for opportunities, they are looking for opportunities, but not just for any opportunities. They're looking for specific opportunities. So I'd like to see if you could share a few things that you learned recently that they really matter to to people. You did mention that flexibility is one of them, really, like the ability to work remote, and that your company is offering some of that, to some level. But what other things, you learn that your candidates really care for? And if you were to offer those things, it'll make it easier for you to convince them to sign up.
So, I think a big thing, especially, with COVID, is benefits. A lot of companies, you have to wait 30, 60, or 90 days. One of the things that Western Wealth Communities did for 2022, is to have benefits start day one. I joined Western Wealth Communities in June of 2020. And that was when the pandemic had just started and nobody really knew what was going on. And I know one of my concerns was, okay, well, what are we doing about COVID? Because you have to go to the lab and you have to get the drug tested. And then you think to yourself, okay, there's people at the lab that are getting tested for COVID. What are their safety protocols? So there's questions that are being asked during the interview process that were never asked before. Do you have to go into the office? Is this a full-time remote position? Is there some flexibility within that? What are you doing with COVID precautions? We're providing masks, we're providing the hand sanitizers, we're making sure we're social distancing. Like, for instance, right now with this new variant, to ensure safety, we've allowed all of our corporate employees at the Phoenix office to work remote. And, every week there's a decision. Are we going back into the office, or are we going to stay remote? And we're following, what is going on in Phoenix and where are the numbers? So, we're allowing that to happen, allowing the remote work for now.
That's a great thing to do, right? And the fact that you're looking out for your employees, and you show that flexibility, and you say, hey, the world is not really ready for us to pile back in office, and you could work from home, like trusting them that they could do the same work from home and be productive. I think that's really a huge thing nowadays, and that really speaks volumes about the type of culture that your company has. Now, speaking of culture, how important do you think culture is for candidates when they're picking, the next best thing? How much does that weigh into their decision? And then maybe if you want to elaborate a little bit about, what your company culture is like.
Mm-hmm.
If I was an applicant for, with your company today, and you were to talk about, the great things that happen at Western wealth communities, what would be the few things that, you would highlight from a company culture perspective to, to try to, get me to gain my interest?
Absolutely. Well, I think culture is very important, and that is always a question. Every candidate asks me about the culture, and it's important because I think sometimes candidates forget that I was a candidate at one time. And, and that was one of my questions. What is your company culture? Western wealth culture is people first. And it's, not only with our residents, but it's with all of our employees. People first being, making sure that we have all the right tools for everyone to be successful. It starts with the interview process. It must be presented in the beginning of the interview. You have to paint a clear picture of who we are and, what is our culture? We celebrate their successes, we train, we develop, with it being people first, we give back to our communities. We invest in our associates, and we love to promote from within. So that's taking that people first approach and ensuring that any concerns that are brought up are addressed and corrected, but showing them that we truly are people first. And, we want you to just enjoy coming to work and enjoying the culture. If the culture isn't there, that's a lot of reason why people leave. It was a toxic work environment. I couldn't stay any longer. And I can honestly say that I couldn't have made a better decision than coming here for my career path. I absolutely love the culture here. Everybody leads with kindness. Everybody's very thoughtful, responsive. If there's help needed, we lean in. That's not my job, but everything we do on every level is a team effort. And I think in order to be a team, you have to put each other first.
That's a great way to put it, and I really hope that our audience right here is gonna check out your company, because you wanted to, you made me wanted to check your company out.
Come on over, Adrian,
and see about the great things that you have over there going on. But to your point, toxic cultures are really pushing people towards the back door. And I'm sure that, when it comes to not necessarily company-wide culture, but I call those micro cultures, right? For example, let's take a certain property where a certain manager is not really treating their employees right? You as a recruiter, as a director of recruiting, you're going to know that probably sometimes even before the regional knows, because you're going to see that there's no employment, employee tenure right there. You always get, you get the longest list of open positions where the same position, becomes open over and over again. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day, how great things are at the beginning, the way they're presented. But if you take this candidate, now an employee, and you put them in a toxic environment, what that management is going to do at a local level, they're gonna push them towards the back door to exit. And in today's environment, honestly, that happens. Like I've been super shocked to see how employees will come into work, and literally that their first day of work, they went for lunch and never came back.
Right.
This is a real situation. It's not anecdotal. Like I have experience, firsthand from an employer that I work for, during the pandemic. So the situation nowadays is that people are not going to stick around, hoping, things will improve. Like if they sense that something is wrong, they will say, I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this. And they're just, they're just exiting, literally. So that makes the job of someone like you, recruiter, or job like mine, a director, more challenging, right? Because you went through the whole process, you put so much time, energy, resources, money into, finding the right candidate. And then a week later or a month later, you had to go through the same process all over again. So it could definitely be heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And I agree, there, like you said, there are microcultures, right? And you start to notice, when you're in the recruiting position, okay, we keep getting the same position over and over and over again at the same property. And then you have to think, why is that? Is it maybe you have a younger manager that really hasn't had an opportunity and doesn't know necessarily how to manage? Is there training that needs to be conducted? Maybe it's just not the right property for that person. And we say this a lot, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You look into it. Is it maybe just the property's too big, or maybe the property's not big enough and they're bored? Is it something personal going on in their lives? People have lives, and things that go on in your life can affect your performance at work. So I think you need to get in there and do some of these discovery questions and find out exactly what is going wrong, and then provide the training or the guidance that is needed to correct that behavior, so that you don't continuously have this turnover at these sites. So I think you definitely have to get in there and dig in a little.
I love this hands-on approach. And like you said, finding out what the issue is, being able to pinpoint what the issue is, generally speaking, we will, label as a, toxic environment when people don't tend to stick around. But when it comes to details, right, drill down and find out what the real reasons are, and address the specific reasons. Instead, just like stopping at, labeling it, and I guess, making decisions that, might really not be the right decisions. That, it could be a decision that you will have to, you will push you to go through the same cycle all over again, unless you really drill down and you find out the real cause, right?
Correct. And I think one of the other things that is really important, and it's something that I chose to do when I first got here, is get to know your hiring managers. Get to know some of the on-site team members, discover what their personalities are and how it meshes on site. And then, not only are you looking for skill set, but is this person going to be a right fit for the property? Because sometimes you can have a really cohesive team, but you hire that one person and maybe their personality just isn't aligning with the current team. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, they're just not a good employee. Again, think about it. Where do you need to put them? Maybe they need to go to a different site. So there's a lot of factors that can go into it, not just someone just isn't doing their job, or they're just a bad employee.
I love the fact that you're saying this, right? Really taking the time to understand who our people are, right? In a world that's so transactional nowadays, where most people just like really want something for something, like I'm gonna give you this if you're gonna give me that. The human factor is just kind of hard to find. The real human connection, the connection to where you get to know someone, you pick up the phone, you call them, you maybe drive down to their property and find out who they really are, spend a few minutes with them one-on-one, what's your life like? What do you do outside of work? Is everything okay with you? Like you really is okay, not just like a checking the box type of question, or finding out, they might have something going on in their life. And maybe if you're able to do some sort of accommodation to help them, get things in their personal life, better, that's going to reflect, your life outside of work and your life within work. They're not two different things. People say, well, leave everything outside the door. Well, I don't think that we could leave everything outside the door. I said that this recently. I said, we take our families to work with us. So what did I mean by that is that when you go to work, you come back from work, you're still not 100% leaving everything at work. You're gonna bring with you. There's gonna be, it's gonna show in your behavior, in the way you're thinking, the way you're addressing, the way you're behaving towards your family. It's going to affect it, right? So it affects your family life, and it could affect it in a great way if you're in a great work environment, or in not such a great way if your environment is stressful, toxic, maybe, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's part of our culture, people first.
So one of the things that I'm sure comes up in the conversations every single time with your candidates is pay, right? And I'm sure that you're striving to find out what that magic number is. Magic number being competitive pay. So could you share a few things with the audience about how do you position yourself, and what are the few things that you're looking for when you're actually determining what's the right pay for a certain position in a certain market?
Correct. So, a lot of times when you're talking to a candidates and, you're asking them, what are you looking for as far as compensation goes, right? I think, first of all, you have to understand the market. Every market's different. For instance, if you're in the DC metropolitan area, the compensation is going to be a lot higher versus maybe, Phoenix, or Dallas. So you've got to know your market. You've got to know your competitors. And, it doesn't always just encompass the hourly or the salary that they're looking for. So I think one of the things that we did to become more competitive is offer better benefits. One of the things we did was, instead of having the candidate or the new hire have to wait 30, 60, or 90 days, we start benefits day one now for 2022, because they're day one, they're part of that team. So they should have all the same benefits as their team members. So benefits is day one. Western Wealth Communities increase their employer contribution. So for me, it's fantastic. My medical ends up being free. That's something else to think about when you're talking compensation, right? The other thing that we did was increase our employee discount for living on site. So our property managers and our maintenance supervisors, if they live on site, they receive a 50% discount on the rent if they're working at the site, or they're living at the site in which they work, right? So, they may say, well, I'm looking for $36 an hour. But if I say, well, unfortunately, we can't accommodate $36 an hour. However, we have the benefits and we have the discount. And when you start to bring, all these other benefits to the surface, then they realize, wow, 50% off my rent, and let's just say the rent's $1,200 a month. That's what's $7,000 a year that they're saving.
Yes,
so now it's taking you from this dollar amount you were thinking that you wanted to actually it ends up being more. So those are just some of the things that we've done to be more competitive, and I think it's actually has increased the ability to attract qualified candidates. And when I'm talking to candidates, they're just thrilled that we're able to offer this to them.
That's such a fantastic way to approach, right? To approach pay. because let's be honest, it's not just about the base hourly pay for hourly employees, especially, right? It's the whole package. You're thinking about income, right? Money that I'm getting, money in my pocket. So your income is not going to be made out of just the hourly rate. You're going to have bonuses, renewal, this, that, the other. And you're also going to have, discounts, like discount when you don't have to spend a full rent and you only have to spend like 50%. Most companies do 20%, right? So there's still a big difference right there. That 30 extra percent makes a difference. Because you don't have to think in terms of, okay, so it's like only $200 a month. Yes, but if it's $200 a month, that's $2,400 a year. You're thinking about it piles up, and then you're talking about free healthcare, health insurance. That could be, I don't know, 100, 200 a month. Then that adds up to another 2,400. So all of a sudden you have like close to $5,000 in extra benefits they wouldn't have gotten somewhere else. It makes a difference. It's money in their pocket.
And we do still offer our assistant managers and leasing professionals, we do offer them a 20% discount. So like you said, it encompasses the whole package, and it's not always just about the hourly wage.
So one of the things that cause people exiting work environments, exiting living companies, is really burnout, the feeling of burnout, right? And that's a real phenomenon, right? Burnout.
Absolutely.
Do you have any tips, or are there any specific things that your company does to try to prevent, to keep people where they don't reach that point of burnout, to keep them engaged and not to a point where they just want to have nothing to do with with the work and move on with the job?
Yeah, burnout is a real thing, and I think it happens to a lot of people, and they get to a point where, like you said, they're burnt out, and then they're done, and then they leave. But I think we definitely encourage our employees to take time off. It's important. You need to take time off. You need to step away. You need to decompress, re-energize, and then you come back, right? And you're ready to go. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Maybe there's some ways you can strategize the workload. If the workload is too much, okay, well, how can we streamline this, or what can we maybe take off your plate and move things around a little bit so that it's more evenly distributed? Ensuring that you're staffing properly. I know industry standard right now, they say 100 units per maintenance tech, right? That's industry standard. But how long has that standard been around? Do you know?
For a very long time.
For a very long time.
I've been in the industry for 19 years. So, I'm going on my 20th year. And ever since I started, and I started as a groundskeeper, right? I've been hearing this, one tech per 100 unit. I don't think it's relevant. You shouldn't be doing it per 100 units. You should be looking at the workload, right? Because you have on your property that might be able to accommodate a tech per 120 units, and then you will have a very distressed old asset that you will need maybe a technician per 60 units, right? So between 60 and 120, there's a big difference. It's like double, right? Or half of what you'll be needing between one and the other. So just averaging and saying it, I think it's honestly, to me, it's just a lazy way to address things. And just because a lot of companies embrace the 1 per 100, just because it's very convenient, and also everybody else does it, why shouldn't we, right? So I agree with you. You should be looking at each individual asset, their needs, understanding what the needs are, and staff accordingly based on the workload, on the challenges that they have on site. Not really based on the number of units, because that's really not that relevant. It's only a very little piece of the whole picture of how much personnel do you need.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we did to, accommodate that is we put together a team of maintenance that can travel from property to property to help them get caught up on some of these work orders, or, fix some of these issues so that they don't have them going forward. But, again, I don't necessarily think 100 units per maintenance tech is the right formula. Like you said, you've got to take in consideration the age of the property, how much maintenance is actually going to be required there, and then take it from there, and then staff accordingly. And I think you're going to eliminate a lot of that burnout.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you mentioned that was one of the topics that I wanted to touch during our conversation, the support system, right? The fact that you have a support system, a team, a roving team or a floating team, right? That goes to where the needs are, the most stringent needs are, and that actually helping relieving some of that pressure, whether it's short staff, overwhelmed, too much work for the current staff, whether it's both, a combination of both, for people being out, like with COVID being around, we all see how places are shutting down every day on a daily basis. Like it's not very uncommon that you will have a COVID situation on one of the properties and the property had to close for the day. Everybody goes home, or they go to get tested first, or the property is not functioning. So you had to come up with ways to overcome that type of situation. You can't just say, okay, we're not servicing a residence, we're a 24/7 business, we have to be there for residents. So that's definitely a great thing, building the support system with the team that's able to step in and just make things happen, while the community, the particular property does not have the means to support that.
Absolutely.
One other question that I like to ask you is that, you did say that people are being heard over there, and not necessarily pertaining to your current position, but throughout your career as a recruiter and director of recruiting, right? A recruiter and a manager, right? How important do you find the exit interviews to be? How valuable do you find them to be? And then do you find a need for maybe introducing stay interviews, so we don't get to the point where we have to conduct exit interviews?
Absolutely. When you get that notification, or your employee comes to you and says, hey, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice, sit down and find out what it is. Why are you leaving the company? Address their concerns. Work together in making that situation better, so that they do want to stay. Again, we're people first approach here. That's our culture. Without our on-site team members, we don't exist, right? So they're the foundation of who we are. So, it is important to ensure that, your employees are happy, you're listening to them, you're addressing concerns. Maybe they feel like they're stagnant. Okay, well, where do you want to go? What's the next step in your career? Show them, invest in them, train, develop, mentor, get them ready to take that next step in their career, because maybe the reason they're leaving is they don't feel like they have anywhere to go. They've hit a ceiling. There's no growth. And with us being such a young company and have had the growth that we've had since we've been here, there's so much opportunity here. There's positions that I'm going to be recruiting for that we haven't even gotten yet. So I think it's important to have that conversation before you get to the exit interview. And if that conversation doesn't work and you have that exit interview and you discover there's, all these reasons why someone left, then take a step back and say, how can we improve it? What can we do to make things better for our employees, or so that we don't come across this issue again? You can't be blind. You have to open your eyes and look at everything and figure it out. Why did they leave? Okay, well, we can make that improvement.
I love when you're saying that, you can't be blind. I
Yeah.
said in a slight different way. Stop believing your own propaganda or your own press, right?
Yeah.
Just be honest with each other, look in the mirror and say, look, we make mistakes. We always make mistakes. Let's find out, what the mistake is. how can we avoid the mistake next? And just look in a mirror and just have that honest conversation. And I also think that our exiting employees, seeing that, we're honest about, trying to fix things that, we weren't able to during their tenure, they really appreciate. I could tell you that from personal experience and from others that I've been interviewing for years, it's so important that, your exiting employee is leaving not feeling bitter, right, when they're going towards, their next opportunity. Because what's going to happen is they're going to provide feedback along the way to others that might be interested in coming to work for your company. And if that feedback is not just something positive that they wanted to share, possibly that's going to make certain individuals and talent not being interested in the opportunities you have to offer just because of that situation and the negative feedback.
Absolutely. And again, all that starts in the interview process, right? They have to have a good experience when they're interviewing. You need to make sure you're, letting them know who we are, what we do, how we came about, our growth projection, our culture. So I think it starts there. And then once they get on board, it continues, and it doesn't just start once they get on site. But it's important, during that background process, why the candidate's waiting to clear to be hired. It's important for the hiring manager to pick up the phone and say, we are so excited you're joining the team. We can't wait for you to get here, because then they're excited to join, and they already at that point feel part of the team. And I think that's important.
This is just great. It's fantastic. I wish we had more time. I truly wish we did. Unfortunately, we're approaching our final moments right here. I want to give you the opportunity in closing and to touch on something that we haven't really touched during our conversation, and hopefully this will be like the segue towards a second part of our conversation, a second episode later down the road.
Absolutely. I would love to do this again with you, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me today. If I could just, leave on this note, I think, when it comes to recruiting, it doesn't just fall on the recruiters, right? It falls on all of us, to ensure that, first of all, my goal is not to just fill a position. I don't want a warm body in a position just to say I filled the role. But I think it's important to make sure that we are finding the right candidate, putting them in the right position so that they can be successful, they can thrive, they can grow. And then, in turn, it's just a win-win for everyone, right? It's a win for your investors. It's a win for your upper management. It's a win for your, your executives, because if you have the right candidate and they're performing, then it just is a win for everybody and a success. So for me, that's my goal, is always to, put the right person in the right position. And when I'm interviewing, I'm not just interviewing that candidate for that position. I'm thinking, where do I see this candidate in a year? Is this assistant manager I'm talking to going to be a great property manager in a year? Or is this property manager I'm talking to going to be our next regional? So for me, it's not only recruiting for the current position, but recruiting for the current position or the future positions we're going to have.
I love it. You understanding you're playing the long game. That's always a winner. Like it's a huge winner. Always. You could never lose by embracing the long game.
That's right. Forward thinking.
Absolutely. So Thu-Van, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoy our conversation. I hope to have you back for another episode, for another conversation. There's just so much more that I would like to cover with you in a future episode.
I would love to do this again, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me today. I truly enjoyed chatting with you and talking about our industry, and just let me know when you need me next time and I'll be there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching us. I'm Adrian Danila, your host. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and this was episode number 10. I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you.